Hi, today we're going to be 3D scanning this part of this Model A to create a complex shape, and then we're going to use that complex shape to pull off flat faces to plasma cut them so they will fit together, weld together, and we can have a structural B-pillar for this car. The original B-pillar was scabbed together, and once I started grinding away the fiberglass and body filler that was the B-pillar of the car, it was very evident that it was made from two different B-pillars. It has scabbed in patch in the bottom, and at the end when this panel is in the car, you will see why the patches in the bottom are even more work for me now. I have to adjust that a little bit to get my part to fully fit, because when I worked off the scan, I did work off of the better part profile of the rail, where it is in the door jamb and where it is further back closer to the wheel well. So I will have to be splicing a piece in. That was the scanning. It was nice and dirty, so it gave a nice reflection, as you can see in the top screen. That is the scans put together, simplified, removed the texture, so it's just a nice color. You can see the distortion on that panel and why I made the decision to only cut the edge of it off and to just weld on the edge of the new door jamb piece with the angle for this is to recess and flush the doors on the car. I didn't want to get into making an entire quarter panel for this car. If I did my usual, give myself 2 inches from an edge, I would have ended up with a nightmare, because the bottom of that panel was bad, the top of that panel was bad, the wheel well of that panel was bad. So here it is in the bottom screen. You see the part I designed. You see the holes for the rearward facing door hinges, so they swing backwards, previously known as suicide style. Or is known, but I don't think people like to say that anymore. So we're removing the part, and we turn the part 3 directions. So those are the 3 faces that I want to pull off. And you see there's curves in that. The one on the far right that I just popped up, that is a 2D cut, and that panel will stay flat. The other 2 with the slots in them, I don't actually cut the slots. I just use them as a way to kind of keep track of everything. Use them as center line in my sketches. So the part, I had to click on that edge, kind of like what you see me doing there, where I'm comparing the 2 edges there. I may have to rewind to see that again, but I click on the edge, I look in the bottom corner of the screen, you can see the measurement that it shows of that line, and then I just made sure that I had a straight line from that point to the previous point, and I would extend move the sketch and reproject, and do this several times for the compound curve pieces. So I'm able to project it, kind of like ship lofting, for get all my curves right and get it all right. So here you can see that the piece that's on the back side of it that has the bends is longer than the piece that does not get the bends. So it will all line up together, and we'll see this here shortly. So to explain that again, we take a projection, and then if we see the curve is a certain length between 2 points where the curve starts and the curve ends, and then we take a straight line point along the center line axis of that part, and we add the difference between the 2 to the length of the part in between those points. And then where we have 2 curves coming together, we do 2 straight lines. So when it's all bent, it lines up just right. As long as it's an even curve, not a spline, but I did these curves with fillets, so they're very even curves. And I did to the hard bend edge. I know when I actually make it, it won't be as hard of a crisp edge, because it wouldn't match the interior of the car. So the little bit of give or take it's going to have with the softer bend, it'll work out with the tiny gaps in welding that we deal with. So here's the pieces laid out, and then we use that for the post-processing for the plasma cutting. So we ended up with 3 custom length pieces that, when bent, all will be the same and are all going to line up. So it's pretty simple. Now this is cutting on my home-built CNC machine that has been running for me so reliably for almost over half a decade now, I think. This is a good little machine. It has a spindle and a plasma. It's a lot of fun. Really opened up doors for me years ago. here's the pieces cut, cleaned up, ready to be welded, and now we're welding them. I like TIG welding everything. You can see a little bit of a gap there, and I'm actually going to hammer that down and move that before I final weld. This was just kind of tack it together to get it ready for test fitting. It did take about 30 minutes of just tweaking and tweaking to get everything ready to weld. And I knew I held up each piece individually in the car, but I hadn't held it all up together as yet. So here we are, first test fit. I was like, might as well film it. It's probably going to have to get refilmed, but it did pretty well. So you see at the bottom, there's a little bit of a gap more than I like. That's kind of pushing the part up against the bottom of the window channel. That's pushing it forward because I have two curves there meeting. So I ended up putting a little clamp on there just to kind of hold it. So once I clean up that old rust repair underneath at the bottom, my part will sit down that little bit extra and it'll fit perfectly. Then I can proceed with hanging the door on it, building the top of the jamb, and then cutting into the cowl and recessing a bit for that for the front latch area. So the door sits flush and it's going to look really clean. There's a nice slow pan of the roof.